Alright, I was just at the gun show here in Pennsylvania and I picked up a Taurus G3C. I just wanted to show you what comes along with it. Of course, you have your paperwork, you have your G3 and G3C manual. This is the G3C, which is the compact version. And I did take the lock out. It did come with a lock, which it's supposed to by law. And so this is a pretty nice little 9mm firearm here. I paid just under $300 for this, and what's nice about this is it comes with 3 12-round magazines, which is what I found at the gun show this year. Is a lot of the new guns, especially 9mm, smaller guns, come with a lot of magazines, or at least there's options to get a package with magazines. So it comes with 3 magazines, which is awesome. And then the gun itself, it's pretty nice. It's not super lightweight, but it's not ridiculous. You got your little flag here so we know it's unloaded. And what I did notice was this one has what's called a second strike capability. And what that means is if you press the trigger and say you have a round in there, or the striker didn't hit it right, or the primer isn't that great, you can actually pull the trigger again and take a second shot at that round before you have to do a type 1 malfunction and jack it out of there. So that's kind of a cool feature. I've never had a gun that had that feature before. So basically you could press the trigger all day long is kind of how this works. Obviously if you had a live round in there, it would cycle, eject your spent round and load a new one in there. So it's a pretty nice little gun, and I'm going to take it to the range now and I'm going to shoot it. How to field strip a Taurus G3 or G3C for cleaning purposes. First, as usual, we are going to remove the magazine, lock the slide back to verify there is no round in the chamber. Always double check that because we're going to be pressing the trigger. To disassemble or remove the slide from the Taurus G3, you simply hold it like this, move the slide back just a little bit to take pressure off of the takedown levers, pinch both takedown levers at the same time, hold them down, let go of the slide, let go of the takedown levers, point the gun in a safe direction, and press the trigger, and that will release your slide. It comes right off of the frame. This is the slide. Turn the slide upside down. Now we want to take off the recoil spring and guide rod assembly. That's simple. Just press it toward the front of the gun. Just squeeze it a little bit and lift it up, and that will come right out. Now your barrel just lifts up. Slide it forward a little and then back out. And that is all you need to do to field strip your firearm for cleaning purposes. If you found this video helpful, please hit like below. Please subscribe, and thank you for watching. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to field strip or disassemble, clean, lubricate, and reassemble the Taurus G3C 9mm pistol. Let's get right into it. Okay, the first step in cleaning any firearm is to verify that it is completely unloaded. First, remove the magazine, lock the slide to the rear, and verify that there is no round in the chamber. And always double check that because we will be pressing the trigger. To field strip the Taurus G3C, simply hold the gun like this and move the slide back just slightly to take the pressure off of the recoil spring so that you can move the takedown levers down. There's one on each side. Grab them both at the same time. Pull down, release the slide, release the levers, point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger, release, and now the slide will come right off the front. Turn the slide over, press on the recoil spring and guide rod, pull that out. Now you can just press up on the barrel and pull that out. And now we can go ahead and clean each piece. You really don't need very much to clean your gun. So I'm going to use original gun oil for the cleaning part. I'm going to use a gun brush. I like this brush. This is actually a dog toothbrush. It's got a big area and a smaller area here, which comes in very handy for cleaning a gun. I'm going to use just some cut up t-shirts. These are just cotton t-shirt cut up into pieces. I use cotton swabs to get into the little nooks and crannies. I love these. These are dual tip. You got a pointy end and a regular end. These are very, very handy. And the other thing I like to use is a bore snake. This is a Hops bore snake. All this is a long fabric. It's got copper brushes built in, which is important for loosening any of the dirt inside the barrel. And then all this material goes through and wipes all the cleaner and dirt out of the barrel. Basically, all we want to do is clean each of these 4 pieces, put a little lube on them, and put them back together. So we're going to start with the barrel. So you can see how dirty the inside of this barrel is. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some gun oil, and I'm just going to drip some inside. I'm just going to put a couple of drops in here. I'm going to put a couple drops in this side. I'm just going to lightly kind of smear the oil around to kind of coat the inside. And we're just going to leave that, work on that for a little bit. So later on when we come back to this, all the dirt will be loosened and ready to come out more easily. All right, so now let's get to the slide. We're going to just get some lube, a couple of drops of lube in here, or solvent, depending on what you're using. Just a couple drops. Then we're going to use our brush, gun brush, dog brush, whatever, and just kind of smear that around. The idea here is just to coat the inside with the cleaner, whatever you're using as a cleaner. Get it spread around a little bit so it can start loosening any dirt. A couple of places we want to be careful of are right here. You don't want to get any oil down into this area. You don't want to get oil in this hole here. That's where the firing pin comes out to fire the round. Certainly clean the breech face. Get a little oil on it with the brush. You could also put a drop or two on the brush. Make it a little bit easier to control where it goes. And then just kind of brush the oil onto the dirty spots. The other important place to clean is there's a slot that runs all the way up either side of the slide. Slides back and forth on those frame rails. They're called slide cuts. There are cuts in the slide. We want to get those nice and clean. So just get some, put the brush in there, get the oil in there a little bit. You're gonna let that sit for a few minutes. All right, now we're just gonna take a cotton cloth and just wipe away the areas where you got the oil as best you can with your fingers. You're not gonna be able to get it all. After you've wiped it, you can take it, put it on there. Use the bristles of the brush to kind of push the cloth down into the tighter spaces. And just kind of use that. And that's going to get down pretty good into all these slots here. Anywhere that you can't get with the brush and the rag, that's what the cotton swabs are for. So just get the bigger side of the cotton swab for the general areas. And what I love about these cotton swabs is this pointy tip gets right in these slide cuts really well. So we want to clean these out real good. Don't push too hard or you'll break your cotton swab. And just basically keep wiping the gun till it comes up pretty clean. This little hook is called the extractor. You want to make sure there's no crud built up underneath this hook. If the outside of your slide is especially dirty, you can do the same thing. I would get the brush, put a drop on there maybe. Just kind of brush that down. Get a nice clean cloth and just wipe that down. Alright, now let's move on to the frame. Alright, so the frame, we want to kind of do the same thing. The most important places to clean on the frame, these rails here, it's where the slide moves back and forth. These rails in the front, these rails in the back on both sides. You want to make sure you're not getting any kind of buildup in this area. And right here, this is where the rounds kind of start getting pushed up into the chamber. Just a drop on each of these rails. And then kind of a drop here and here and here. And then I'm just going to use the brush to kind of brush that in and help clean this off. And you don't have to get as detailed as I'm getting here. You can just give this a good wiping. Actually, you could use a dry brush if it's not too dirty, and just brush all the loose dirt off of there, and you'll probably be good to go. I like to get it a little bit cleaner than that. And then after you get them coated, just get your cloth rag, wipe this as best you can. Alright, and then you can use a cloth, use the bristles of your brush to kind of push that down underneath the slide rails. It's just one way of doing it. You can use the cotton swabs, works well. Gonna just finish it off with the cotton swab. Just be gentle in this area. You don't want to push anything around too much or bend anything. Got it pretty clean enough for me. Alright, next is the recoil spring and guide rod. All you want to do here is just kind of brush it off. Make sure any buildup just comes off of it with the brush. Alright, so now we come to the barrel. The barrel again has had oil inside of it for about 5 or 10 minutes now, so we're good to go. We're going to get the bore snake, feed the end in from this side, alright, and just pull that through. It's a little tight. The brushes are nice and tight, which is good. It's going to help pull that dirt out. And then all this material acts like a whole bunch of patches at once going through there. So I just passed that through once, and if you remember what it looked like, it's already looking nice and shiny. I like to put it through a couple of times just to be sure, but one pass after letting that oil sit in there is probably all you really need. That is pretty clean. We still have to work on this outside area here. For this outside area, just put a drop of oil on the cotton swab or solvent, whatever you're going to use, and use that. If you need to get the brush in there, wipe that down. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so next we want to clean the magazine. You can just wipe this down for the most part. Wipe down the follower. That's this part here that pushes the rounds up. It's called the follower. Just make sure everything's clean. Take a quick look at it to make sure these feed lips are not bent, that they look like this, that they're not bent out of shape. All right, and that's all you really need to do for this magazine. And if you do need to disassemble this and take it apart because you've dropped it in the gravel or the dirt, I'll make a video and I'll link it up here in the corner so you can go to that video and see exactly how to take this apart. Alright, so now we want to lubricate the Taurus G3C. So the user manual for the Taurus G3C only tells you to put lube in 2 places. And that is the frame rails, which there's 4 frame rails, and the barrel lockup points. And the lockup points are where the barrel comes into contact with other pieces of the gun. I'm going to show you some of those places. So we're just going to put oil on these rails, and it's just going to be a tiny bit of oil. Going to put maybe like a half a drop on each of these rails, and you don't want to put a big drop, so you could even kind of dab off any excess so it's not dripping. And the barrel lockup points, so I'm just going to put 1 drop on top here, and I'm going to put a drop, oh, that's a little bit too much. Just 2 drops on the barrel lugs, and kind of not wipe them off completely, but just kind of get the excess so you can still see oil in these areas. And that's really all you need to do. It wouldn't hurt to put just a little bit on the front here, because that does slide in and out of the slide. And that's about all you need as far as lubrication for this firearm. So now it's time to reassemble. And so reassemble is just the opposite. Take the slide upside down. Take the barrel in this orientation, drop it in, and just kind of drop it in and lock it back like that. Then take your recoil spring and guide rod assembly in this orientation with the smaller spring toward the back of the gun. This fits in here. Just kind of squeeze that back so that it sits right in that notch there. Alright, to put the slide back on, simply line up the slide on the frame with the frame rails here. Bring the slide up like this. Be careful when you get to the ejector here that you don't scratch the back of your gun, because there's a little bit of play right here. So just bring it up nice and straight. When you get here, sometimes it gets a little hung up. So if you can't go straight back, don't worry, just back up a little. Back it up a little. Try it again. Make sure it looks good, and then test your slide. Alright, and now your gun is all back together. If necessary, if any oil has gotten free, just wipe it off with your rag. And now you want to do a quick function and safety check. I'll put a link up here to a video on how to do that, just to make sure everything's working properly. Alright, if you found this video helpful, please hit like below. Please check out the description for all the products that we used here to clean this gun today. And thank you for watching. Today we're going to disassemble and clean a Taurus G3C 12-round magazine. If you have dropped your magazine in the gravel or the dirt, or just have had it for a long time and you want to take it apart to clean it up, to disassemble the magazine you need to take this floor plate or base plate off. And this comes off in this direction. So all you need to do is take a screwdriver or a gun punch or something and push down on this button in the middle. When you push this down, maybe a half an inch or so, and at the same time start pushing the floor plate toward the front until it goes far enough to hold that button down. At this point you want to make sure you have a thumb over top here so the spring doesn't come out and hit you in the face. Also make sure you wear eye protection here, and then just pull this off. Alright, then that comes off, and now this particular magazine, it's got these lips on the side that kind of hold this insert in place. This might come out easily for you. Mine was really tight and hard to get out, so what I found was if you push on the back here and get the front of it up above the tube and then kind of pull it forward like that, once you get the wider part out of there, once you get it there, don't break it, but you can kind of work it up out like that, and then the spring will pop out. Once the spring comes out, you can just pull that out, and then your follower will come out like that. And now we just need to clean up each piece and put it back together. Alright, once you have the pieces taken out, you don't want to get any oil inside of a magazine because you don't want it to end up getting on your rounds. Just wipe down the spring with a cotton rag. Wipe down the follower, same way. You could use soap and water on this if it was really dirty, if you needed to, but you don't want to use any oil on the magazine. The little insert. To get the inside of the magazine tube, you can just take a brush and push it through here a couple of times. That'll push out any dirt or any gravel or dirt that built up in there. Push it through a couple of times. Wipe down the outside, and that's pretty much it. So now we just need to put it back together. Alright, and to reassemble the Taurus G3C magazine, you want to take the follower this way. It goes into the magazine in this orientation. You just put it in there, and let it slide down to the bottom and hold it like that. And then the spring goes in this way. You just push the spring in, goes up against the follower, and then now you want to hold it upside down like this and get this pretty squared away, and then this bottom plate goes on this way. You want to set that on there, and then just try to get everything to sit in there. Push that in until it sits like this. Now you want to hold on to that. This spring might be peeking out a little bit, that's fine. And make sure most of this is underneath these little lips on the side. And then now you want to take your floor plate, base plate, and slide it on this way. So it's going to line up with those little slots there. So make sure it's nice and flush. You'll have to push this down a little. Push this plate down a little to get this to slide on. As soon as it slides on part way, you can let go here, and then now you just push it back into place and it should snap up there. Alright, and it should look like this on the bottom. test this to make sure when you press this down, there's a lot of spring pressure there. All right, and now we're going to test to make sure everything is good. We're going to simulate firing the gun. We're going to put some dummy rounds. These are A-Zoom dummy rounds. I use these for all my guns that come in a package of 10 or 5 or 20, whatever you want to buy. I'll put a link in the description. We're simply going to load 5 of these into the magazine. And then we're going to take the firearm. We're going to verify twice that it's empty, nothing in the chamber. Verify that you only have dummy rounds in here, even though we're not going to be pressing the trigger. All right, I'm going to take the magazine loaded with 5 dummy rounds, load it into the gun. I'm going to release the slide. And it has loaded 1 dummy round into the chamber and 4 still in the magazine. So now I'm just going to simulate firing the gun by racking the slide briskly. And each time, if the magazine and everything is feeding properly, it will eject a round. And after the 5th time, the empty magazine will lock the slide open. So make sure you do this very, very briskly, but don't ride the slide back forward. You want to rack it and let go of it each time. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it locks open on an empty magazine. Everything's working perfectly. All right, we are now ready to go to the range. If you found this video helpful, please hit like below. Please check out the description for dummy rounds if you need them. And thanks for watching. Today we're going to go through the function and safety checks on a Taurus G3C handgun. Anytime you disassemble and then reassemble a semi-automatic handgun, it's a good idea to go through some of the quick safety checks to make sure it's functioning properly. The Taurus G3C manual does not have a particular function and safety check protocol, so we're just going to go over some safety features and functions that I think are important that you check after disassembling and reassembling your firearm. So there's a couple of checks that you can do before you get it fully reassembled, so we'll go through those. First, as usual, always verify that your gun is unloaded. Always remove the magazine first, then make sure there's no round in the chamber. And double check that because we are going to press the trigger to field strip this one. So I'm just going to take the slide off this and show you a firing pin safety check that we can do. And on the Taurus G3C, hold the slide back slightly, take the takedown levers on both sides, hold those down at the same time, release the slide, release the levers, point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger, and now the slide will come off of the top. Then you can remove the recoil spring, guide rod, and barrel. So one of the safety features on this gun and a lot of guns is called the firing pin safety plunger. So what this does is this helps protect the gun from firing if you were to drop it. So if you drop the gun in a certain way, if this isn't here, the firing pin could fly forward and hit the round that's in the chamber and fire the weapon. See the firing pin poking through there. So this is here to prevent that. So the way to test this is you should grab a hold of the firing pin lug in the back, press it back under spring pressure and just make sure that moves freely. All right, and when you press it forward, it should not come through the firing pin hole right there. It should only be able to come forward if you press on this plunger at the same time. And then it will come forward. If you let go of that, it should not come forward. Alright, so that's a firing pin block. So that's an important safety feature. Once we have that verified that that's working okay, we can put the gun back together. Okay, now we're just going to do a basic quick visual inspection. Make sure nothing is cracked, corroded, broken, bulged, anything like that. Then we're going to test the magazine release. So take a magazine, put it in the gun. You should not be able to get that magazine out by pulling on it. It should drop free, however, when you press the magazine release. Now we want to check the trigger safety. So the trigger safety is this little lever right here in the middle of the trigger. So what this does is it makes it difficult for the trigger to go back unless someone has a correct grip on it. So if it gets caught in your clothing or that kind of thing and it just gets pushed back, unless this trigger safety is also pressed, the trigger will not go back. So what we want to do is grab a hold of the trigger on the sides and try to push it back. Make sure you do not hear the click where it fires the gun. And that's successful, and now press the trigger properly, always pointed in a safe direction. Press the trigger properly, and it does fire. So on this gun, you don't have to rack the slide to reset because it has second strike capability. So on this particular gun, and this one only, every time you press the trigger, it should click. Okay, to test the trigger reset on this particular gun, just going to, again, point it in a safe direction, press the trigger all the way back. You hear it click, hold it back, and then slowly release it till you hear a solid click, and then press it again. Okay, and that's just checking to make sure your trigger resets properly. All right, the next thing we're going to check is the external safety. If your particular gun has this external safety lever, we're going to test that. So with this safety engaged, the trigger should not be able to fire. And with the safety down, the trigger works. All right, so we're good to go there. So the last check that I like to do on all of my semi-automatic firearms, I want to verify that it's going to extract and eject properly. The easiest way to do that is to get some dummy rounds. I use A-Zoom dummy rounds. It's just fake ammunition. It's just aluminum in the shape of actual rounds that you can have, and these are 9mm for a 9mm gun. So what I normally do, I'll get about 5 of these, load them into one of the magazines, and please verify that these are all dummy rounds, although we're not going to be pulling the trigger here. But get 5 dummy rounds, put them into the gun, rack the slide to load a round. So now we have a dummy round loaded into the chamber and 4 more in the magazine. All I'm going to do is rack the slide 5 times, and each time is going to extract and eject one of the dummy rounds. So what you want to do is you want to rack the slide to the rear and then let go of it. You don't want to ride it forward because you might go too fast or too slow and then it's not going to work properly. So just grab a hold of the slide and rack it very briskly to the rear. All right, 1 came out, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it locked open because we have an empty magazine. Everything's working perfectly. That's the last test that I do, and now you are ready to go to the range. If you found this video helpful, please hit like below, please subscribe, and please check out the description below if you need some dummy rounds. They're a great thing to have. They can really help you troubleshoot if you're having trouble with your gun as well. All right, thanks for watching. Today I'm going to show you how to swap or reverse the magazine release button on a Taurus G3C handgun. We're going to move it from the left side of the gun for a right-handed shooter over to the right side of the gun for a left-handed shooter where I have it now. First thing, we always want to make sure the gun is unloaded, no magazine in the gun, and no round in the chamber. Now we do want to remove the slide, so hold it back, push the slide release levers down on both sides at the same time, let go of the slide, let go of the levers, point the gun in a safe direction and press the trigger, and now the slide will come right off the front of the gun. So now I will show you how to release the magazine spring from the magazine release. Alright, we're going to start with the magazine release on the left side of the gun for a right-handed shooter. This is how the gun comes stock. So now we just need to release the magazine release spring so we can get the magazine button out of there. Alright, so in order to release the magazine release spring, I'm going to put my screwdriver in here like this, and I'm going to lever it this way to push that spring behind the magazine release button. So I'm just going to push that spring in that direction. Alright, so I'm just going to screwdriver down inside, get right up on that spring. I'm going to put a finger here to get ready to, I'm going to get ready to press on this button once I release the spring. So I'm going to push that back, push the magazine release, and it'll fall right out of there. And then you'll end up with your spring just sitting there in the middle like that. Alright, and here's your release right here. Alright, once we get it out, now we want to put it on the other side of the gun. We want to put the rough side on this side of the gun for left-handed shooter. So we're going to want to take it, put it in this side, and just feed it through. You can put your finger in there to kind of hold it in place. Okay, so you just have it in there like this. Alright, once you get the magazine button in there, you want to put your finger in there to kind of hold it in place. You want to get this smooth side lined up with the gun like that, right? And now, if you look down in there, we want to get the end of this spring over into this little notch right here. So we want to kind of bend it in and move it that way. Okay, so when you're doing that, you want to hold on to this so that plastic piece doesn't move. I'll try and do this and keep it in front of the camera while I do it. All right, and then just push this back and over into that notch like that. And now the magazine button moves against the spring. Now we have it on the other side of the gun for a left-handed shooter. So next thing you want to do is put the slide back on, and we want to test it out. So just line up your slide nice and straight. Push it back all the way. All right, and now get your magazine. Let's pretend we're left-handed here. Get the magazine, press it in, try and pull it out. It's in there good, and then press your magazine release, and it should pop right out. Awesome. All right, if you found this video helpful, please hit like below, please subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Today we're going to disassemble the slide of a Taurus G3C. We're going to remove the firing pin and the extractor from the slide for cleaning purposes. As usual, first thing you want to do is make sure there is no round in the firearm. Make sure it's completely unloaded. Then to field strip this firearm and remove the slide, we're going to hold it back, pull down the takedown levers, release the slide, release the takedown levers, point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger, and then the slide will come right off the front. Alright, remove the recoil spring and guide rod, and remove the barrel. So now we're going to remove the firing pin or striker assembly from inside the slide. In order to do that, you need to remove this slide cover plate on the back, but it has a lot of spring pressure from the firing pin spring pushing up on that yellow spacer in there. So in order to remove that pressure, just take a small screwdriver, put it right in here on the ledge of this yellow part here, and we want to push down on that. See, it's going to move this spacer down a little bit to remove pressure from this cover plate. So once you press that down and hold it down, now you'll be able to slide this up with your finger. Once you get it this far, you want to be careful this doesn't pop out and hit you in the face, so you want to cover this with your thumb or a finger or something while you pull that off. And that has now popped up just a little bit, so now you can just grab onto this lug here and pull the entire firing pin assembly, which looks like this, out of the slide. That's a little dirty, so we're going to clean that up. Okay, in order to remove the extractor, we need to press down on this spring-loaded pin right in the middle here. When we press this down, it is the pivot point for this extractor, but there's a lot of spring pressure. There's a spring over here, which we're going to see. There's a spring underneath of here, pushing this out, which pushes this in because it's pivoting here. And this safety plunger is also held in by the extractor. So when we get this extractor out, both of these things are going to want to come out under spring pressure, so we need to be careful about that. You want to get something like a 3/32 pin punch, like what I have here. This is a 3/32 pin punch, and you want to center it on this pin. I'm going to push down nice and firm. If it doesn't go down, you might want to tap on it just really lightly with a hammer. Okay, when you feel it click and release, you can see that the extractor started to come out. Don't want to pull this out yet. Very slowly release the pin punch to make sure that that pin doesn't pop out, which it shouldn't yet. And then now we're going to just kind of pry this out with your fingernail or a screwdriver, but you want to put your finger over both of these things first because there's springs that are going to want to pop out. You can kind of see what happened there. We push that pin down below this piece of metal, which is now in the way of that pin coming out, and this piece of metal is part of the extractor, as you'll see in a second. All right, so put your thumb over that, pull this out. It's going to come out like that. There's a spring on there as well. There's your extractor and your extractor spring, and then see these two things are now kind of sitting there loose. and they both have springs on them. So let them come out. Alright, so here's your safety plunger for your firing pin and its spring, and this is the little extractor pivot pin and its little spring there. So now we're going to clean all these things. We have a couple of openings here in the slide we're going to clean. We're going to clean the firing pin channel here, and then we're going to put it all back together. Okay, in order to clean everything, we're just going to use some cotton swabs. I like these double tip cotton swabs. They have a regular end and a pointed end, which helps you get in all the nooks and crannies. And I'm going to use a pipe cleaner to clean the firing pin channel. I like these Otis pipe cleaners. All these items will be down in the description. Check out the links to Amazon, carries all these products. And then I'm just going to take like a cut up t-shirt to wipe everything down here. Now this firing pin does come apart a little bit further. If you're not good with really small things that are spring loaded, you might not want to attempt this, but I'm going to show you how to do it. Get something like a Real Avid Smart bench block or something that you can set this on the edge. You want to support the lug here, not the spacer. Put it on the edge here, and then grab a hold of the spring, push the spring down, and then these two cups will separate just like that. And you can take those pieces off, then let go of the spring, gently let that come off the top, pull the firing pin out of the spacer like that, and then remove the secondary spring. And now your firing pin is completely disassembled for even further cleaning. And now we can get all these pieces cleaned up together. Alright, so I'm just going to clean everything up real good. I'm just going to wipe everything down basically. You don't want to get lubrication on these parts. You definitely want to make sure you clean the tip of the firing pin here. Just wipe everything down to remove any crud. Wipe down the springs. Wipe down these little cups. You can clean this spacer. You can wipe it down. You can get inside of it with a Q-tip. We've got the firing pin taken care of. Just going to wipe down this extractor real good. The Q-tip in there and get any places that you can't get with the cloth, and get everything nice and cleaned up in there. Alright, I'm going to clean up this little pivot pin here. Alright, wipe down the firing pin plunger. Extractor spring, and the cover plate goes on the back. Got all these pieces cleaned up, got all these pieces cleaned up. Now we want to clean the inside of the slide. I would clean inside this channel here, clean inside this channel. Okay, I'm not going to clean the entire slide in this video. That will be part of the entire gun cleaning video. I'm just cleaning the areas that we're working on right now, which is the firing pin and extractor areas. Clean the breech face here. That's kind of part of it. And then the channel where the firing pin goes, you can go in there with the Q-tips. Just keep using fresh Q-tips until you get everything as clean as you want it to be. Alright, and then the last thing I like to do when cleaning the firing pin channel is feed a pipe cleaner in there, and it'll come through right through there and make sure we get that channel nice and clean. Alright, now everything's cleaned up, it's time to put it back together. To reassemble the firing pin assembly, simply take the secondary spring, put it on the firing pin like so, feed it into the spacer, goes in just like that. Take your spring, doesn't matter which side, they're both the same. You'll put it on like that, and now you want to find a little edge to support the lug part here. Set the lug down, hold on to the spring, push the spring down past this little narrow spot here, and take 1/2 of the cup, put it here, kind of pinch it there with your finger, put the other half on this side, and then gently release the spring, and that will trap everything together, and it'll end up looking just like that. Your firing pin is now reassembled. Alright, now we're going to put the extractor back into the slide. So first we need to take the safety plunger, spring, and actual plunger, and we're going to put it back into the hole here. You can take a look in the side right here to make sure that it is seated properly. So it should press down on it, it should pop back up about like that. So now we're going to take this little pivot piece here and we're going to put this in right next to that right here, and that should sit in there like that. And you press on that a little bit, you can see it's sitting on top of the spring in there like that. Putting the extractor into this particular firearm can be quite challenging. So what I do to make it a little easier is I just put one little drop of super glue right there on the extractor, and then I'm going to set the spring on there and just let that sit, because that spring really tries to move around while you're trying to put this together, and it becomes very frustrating. I'm going to just let that dry for a little while, and then I'm going to come back and put that extractor back in there. So we're going to see how well this works with it super glued on there. So in order to get this back in here, you got to start in here like this and kind of bring it around. Okay, and at this point it's not going to go in because one of these two pins is going to be in the way. So see which one's in the way, push that down a little bit, push this down, have to move it around a little bit until it goes down. Once it goes down a little ways, and you can see a little edge of the extractor in there is actually holding the shoulder of this little pin down in there. So now we're in good shape. This spring is still in place because it's glued on there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to push this pin down all the way, and that's going to allow us to push the extractor in further. So if we push this down further, you can see the extractor coming over the top of that pin. So now we're halfway home. You might have to move this a little bit. Alright, that's out of the way. So now we're going to push it in all the way. And this little pin, we'll have to fiddle with that just a little bit to get that to pop back up. When that pin is completely seated properly, it's going to look like this down in that hole there. Alright, and then this safety plunger will move in and out with the spring. Alright, and now we can put the firing pin back in. Assembly goes into the firing pin channel with the lug facing up, as such. And then now we can put the rear cover back on. And the rear cover goes in this way. You can line it up, press down on the yellow part until you can get this to slide in there part way. And once it's in there part way, you just snap it back in place. Okay, now everything appears to be back where it belongs. So one thing you can check real quick here is if you press back on this lug to make sure you feel the spring pressure and it kind of pushes it back forward. And when you press forward on this lug, the firing pin should not poke out through the breech face here through this hole unless you also press on the firing pin plunger, safety plunger. And that's the job of the plunger, is to block that firing pin. So if you press down on that, you should be able to push the firing pin up through the breech face like that. And when you let go, you should not be able to get it to come through. All right, and that is a safety feature. All right, so now we have the slide completely reassembled, and now all we need to do to finish is put the gun back together. And this is assuming, of course, you've cleaned and lubricated the gun. If you need to know how to do that, I have a link up in the corner here for a cleaning video. Now we can just put the slide back on the frame, just line it up nice and straight. And now you can do a function and safety check. I'll link to the video up here in the corner. Just a few quick checks to go through to make sure the gun is functioning as it should be. Please check out the links below for all the products that we used in this video. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.